I am Ki-Soo Lee, the President of Korea University. Today, I am very pleased to chair this session with the worldly renowned speakers. Before we get into the speakers' presentations, first let me briefly remind you of our session theme on universities' educational innovation for the future. As all of us are well aware, in the wake of the expansion of the globalization and acceleration of the technology, we are constantly asked to adapt to the ever-increasingly fast-paced future society. To meet the need of the future society, the core of the education and the methodology is said to be changed. I hope that this session will give us the insight into megatrend of human resources strategy and the direction of the education. And also, I believe that this session will enable us to look into the futuristic model of the innovative university. In this session, each speaker spent about 20 minutes, and then we'll have 10-minute panel discussion, and then we'll have floor discussion. I would like to start from the first speaker. Let me introduce Jerome C. Glenn. He is the co-founder and director of the Millennium Project and is a leading global think tank. He is also an international development consultant for groups such as the World Bank and UNESCO. Today, he is going to talk about our interesting study on the future of education and learning in 2030. And based on the study, he will share some of his suggestions for policy. Please welcome him with a big hand.
Well, let's see. First of all, I'm not Dr. Kahn, although Herman Kahn was one of my coaches, so I hope we can get a different presentation up here. I'm not going to be able to cover a lot of material in 20 minutes, so I'll try to go through things relatively quickly and pause from time to time. The PowerPoint will be available to you. Much of the background information on this is available on our website, which is an easy one to remember. If you can think of State of the Future, stateofthefuture.org, you can find a lot of this material. Brain development, I think, is going to be the major focus of the next 20 to 25 years in the brain. We're learning a lot about how the brain works. We didn't know before. And many people who have taken a look at cognitive science and neurophysiology are amazed at how much we've learned in the last 25 years. But I believe that what we have learned in the last 25 years will look as primitive as we think about telex machines compared to Google searching today. Because the speed of change is accelerating, and it's accelerating about how we can learn about the brain, because cognitive science is that relationship between the brain and the computer. So we should have tremendous improvements. If it's the case that our computational capabilities will be available to all people, then the storage of knowledge will not be as important as the processing of knowledge, which is our brains. So, I suspect that the cyberspace phenomena will be the major way that people will be in reality. Think about how much time you spend in cyberspace today. It's very limited. But if you have cyberspace connected to your glasses, your contact lenses, to every possible surface area in 25 years, then you are more in cyberspace than you're into this kind of world as well. Also, the visual information that you'll be receiving in your eyes will be more dense, more precise, and more exciting than this. Ubiquitous computing will make that as a continuum around the world. Globalization will be useful in the sense that whether you're here or in the United States or in China, it won't matter so much because you'll be acting at a distance and you'll be acted on at a distance as well. Democratization of the entrepreneurial power, what I mean by that is as earlier speakers today were speaking a little bit, as power moves toward the individual, then that means that any individual can create a learning experience and businesses at any time, at any place around the world. So we'll start to have what we call collective intelligence, and I'll come back to that in a bit. And we'll be surprised, I think, by the synergies among nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive science. This opens extraordinary possibilities for human resource development. What we consider a functional genius today should be functionally more common in the future as a result of this. Not necessarily only the inheritance, but the performance of a person. When we think today about how we act in the world, compare that to your grandparents, and it's staggering. So by the old, because you know that what they call a Flynn effect is that the IQ is supposed to be 100 is in the middle. They have to readjust it every so many years. We are getting smarter, and we're learning how to get smarter. And the smarter we get, the learner the ability to continue increases. Just like as we have software, create software to create better software. We have hardware to create better hardware, right? We will start to learn how to have brainware to improve our intelligence as well. 25 years ago, who would have believed in the Korea's business would compete successfully? Now I want you to go back 25 years in your mind, please. For those that are here 25 years ago, well, pretend. 25 years ago, if we had had this meeting and I had said that Korea would outperform in some straight-on competition businesses and transportation, you'd say, I don't think so. In communications, straight-on competition. Beating us in information systems, Korea is with the United States. Per capita, and who would have believed 25 years ago that your per capita income would be $10,000 more per person in Korea than Russia? Who would have believed that 25 years ago? And who would have believed 25 years ago that millions of people would be playing computer games written right here in Korea? Who would have believed that 25 years ago? So no, I'm telling you that that rate of change is slow compared to the next 25 years. So we make a mistake, in my judgment, on underrating, under-expectating the future. As a result, we don't make decisions today to take advantage of that. 25 years ago, what human resources or other educational plans had internet and personal computers in them? Anybody here? One? Aha! He's guilty. He's from Silicon Valley. That's not allowed. In 1983, how many teachers would have believed that they would have computers inside their classrooms? What economist would have believed that hundreds of millions of people could search trillions or billions of computer pages and another hundreds of millions of people could do it the next second for no additional cost? No economist would have believed that 25 years ago. Just 25 years ago, there was no internet, few PCs or mobile phones. The Europeans, if you told the Europeans they're going to have a common currency, they'd say, not a chance. You don't understand Europe. Who would have believed NATO would be in Afghanistan? Who would have believed the World Trade Organization would overrule businesses in the United States? Who would have believed that we would be talking about globalization today? It was urbanization 25 years ago. And the idea of genetically modified foods and an AIDS pandemic knocking out the management class of an entire continent of Africa. Who would have believed that 25 years ago? Asymmetrical warfare was something in the Bible about David and Goliath, but it had nothing to do with real power in the world. And most of the people that I talked to in audiences like this 25 years ago believed that we were going to blow up in World War III and we wouldn't even be alive today. So the unconscious mind said, hey, why take the future seriously? We won't get there. Moore's law, as you know, if it continues, we should have the computational power per dollar equivalent to a human brain in 25 years. When people say, I'm so busy, you need another self, you'll have another self, supposedly, in less than 25 years. The computational power. Are we teaching people how to offload their brain? In biology, we offloaded a lot of our work of heartbeats, respiration, and so forth, so that our conscious mind, our frontal lobe, can do business. Are we teaching ourselves to figure out how to take advantage of this coming up in the future? 25 years after that, we may have all of the human species have all of the computational power of all of the people of the world. That's a completely different world. So what we think is far out today could very well be possible within the next 25 years. So I am willing to bet that 25 years from now, if you have this PowerPoint, someone's going to say, well, this far out futurist was very conservative. So here's some far out things that will probably be conservative in 25 years. The Korean birth rates continue to be low. If they do, then much of the workforce will be older people, robots, and distributed around the world. Human intelligence is a competitive advantage in the world knowledge economy. Lines of genetic code will be written like software to create new forms of life and merge with artificial life. Life extension becomes to look more realistic. Now this is deadly serious. If you're paying attention to longevity research, you'll know what I'm talking about. There is reason to believe that 25 years from now we could go relatively long term, and it might actually be important, because if the fertility rates continue to go lower and lower, you won't have Japan, Korea, and other parts of the world. It just starts to disappear. And before they disappear, you have most of the people on retirement. How can you run an economy when the majority of people are on retirement? It doesn't work. So yes, the population is going up, and yes, that's a problem, and yes, it's a lot of stuff we have to deal with. But after 2050, it starts to fall off very quickly. That's if we don't have breakthroughs in living longer. 3D printing of human organs and other things. You write a computer code, you do some software, and you print in 2 dimensions, and you have your nice little graphic. We'll be able to write genetic code and print organs within 25 years. The race to connect everything not yet connected will be commonplace. And what I mean by that is, imagine you go to the airport, and the person at Korea Air says, I'm sorry, you cannot board this plane until I see you take 2 aspirin. How did that happen? Nanotech fibers in your socks will monitor your blood pressure and internal vessels to know if there's a risk that you might die en route with the internal thrombosis in the ankles. If you die, it doesn't look good for Korean Air. So instead, they're very happy to work out a deal with the insurance companies, and the insurance companies are very happy to work out a deal that I pay less health insurance if I wear those socks and I'm getting my body monitored. Then I agree with the insurance company that I have to be healthy to get on the plane. So you take the 2 aspirin and everybody's happy. So if you can connect socks to airplane tickets, what else can you connect? This will be an extraordinary race to imagine everything that you can possibly conceive of being connected. Tremendous opportunities, growth there. And global brains emerging from internet. This is a sort of a theoretical discussion going on around the world, but it'll become more practical later on. And then merging of the human mind and technology. 2 major trends are going on. Humans are becoming cyborgs. And when I say cyborgs, I don't mean Star Trek's Borgs. Part of the job of science fiction is to warn us about what could be wrong. So how could we have a merger between machines and humans in a good way? You just put your glasses on, you're a part-time cyborg, you're guilty. We're dependent. If I get in a car and I drive my car with my glasses, I'm a part-time cyborg. You're an astronaut, you're in a submarine, you're a part-time cyborg. A cyborg is somebody who's dependent upon technology for a vital function. That's a clear trend. We're moving in that direction. And our physical environment will have ubiquitous computing, voice activation, voice synthesis, the ability to identify yourself, and interconnected with a knowledge system, as I mentioned before, a collective intelligence. So the built environment seems to become conscious. When these 2 trends merge, we'll be in a post-information age, or a conscious technology age. I won't go through this whole chart. The purpose of this chart is to give you just a general overview of the basic ideas of the past and potentials of the future. As we slowly will move down on this chart. As some of the speakers before mentioned, that we go from power in the early agricultural age of religion to industrial age of nation-state, the information age, corporation, and the conscious technology age, more the individual. An individual acting alone can do all kinds of things coming up in the future that only corporations or governments could do in the past. So what will we be designing 25 years from now? And who is behind those eyes? Is that a machine or a human or both? Future learning possibilities in the year 2030. What we did is we reviewed a variety of options, and for each option in the future, we asked 4 questions about them. What might make the possibility a reality? What would make it positive if it occurs? What might prevent the possibility? And if it does occur, how might it go wrong? Because a lot of times things go wrong. So this is the 4 questions that any policymaker has to answer to take an idea forward. So you can get this. Dr. Park Young-suk over there, can you raise your hand? She's the chair of the Millennium Project Node and was with us on this study before, and she's got the whole report there, I think in Korean as well as English, that you can get later on. So here are 19 possibilities. I won't have time to go through all of them. So I'll pick out a couple that I think myself are sort of interesting. The first one, national programs for improving collective and individual intelligence. What happens if the Korean Ministry of Science and Technology or the Korean Ministry of Education declares increasing intelligence as a goal of education? How would teacher training change? What if the government decided collective intelligence was something it ought to have along with the Defense Department and other departments, a collective intelligence for the whole country? Look at all the brains in this room, all the knowledge in this room. Right now, we don't have access to each other's brains. I mean, yes, you can keep private what you want to keep private. That's okay. It's like any computer system. But imagine we were able to access what we needed to access right in just in time to make better decisions. Imagine all of the people of Korea able to have that. You're laying the foundation today with a broadband internet, and the next step after internet is collective intelligence. How do you bring together the best humans and the best information into some combination uniquely suited for just you? You can do it for a country, you can do it for an individual, you can do it for a corporation, you can do it for a university. Another one that's a little bit far out that I like down the bottom, artificial microbes enhance intelligence. Now, it's my job to talk about the future, so I have no tolerance for people saying something is a little too far out. So the following is scientifically possible. It'll sound far out to you, but I think it's serious. And it's not being taken seriously yet. And that is, we'll be able to design microbes to eat the plaque between our dendrites, because much of old age is building up of this sugar material in the dendrites. We have microbes in our digestive system making our digestion work all the time. We're full of microbes. We're a whole collection of little organisms. Without them, we would die. But we haven't developed that capacity for our brains. So our brains develop later on. Frontal lobe is later part. Our mammalian brain is taking care of the old stuff, the heartbeats and all the rest of it, but we got the frontal part, the new area here for our creative thought. Well, what happens if we can offload the creative thought into a duplicate brain system, and we can keep what we got left in good shape? How would our minds evolve even beyond what we have today? So we'll be able to live in multi-virtual realities. Right now, people think about going into virtual reality as one place. But imagine you have an avatar that ports from one to another, so you can go back and forth with many multi-virtual realities, not just one. And maybe there'll be new kinds of human relationships altogether. Now, collective intelligence is a controversial subject. This is my definition here. Collective intelligence is an emergent property, just like a tree emerges from a seed with the earth, the water, and its own genetic material. Collective intelligence is an emergent property from the synergies among data, information, intelligence, software and hardware, and experts that continually learns from feedback. One of the key lessons of brain development is you've got to allow for feedback. Just given information is no good. It makes you dumb, stupid, and habituated. But responding to that feedback causes neural connections and makes the brain more complex. So it learns continually to produce just-in-time knowledge, because to some degree someone will say, well, isn't a library a collective intelligence? No, because you can't get just-in-time knowledge out of it. And it doesn't update itself. In a collective intelligence system, the data units are updatable, are changeable. The book is there. It's a static sort of an activity. So just-in-time knowledge for better decisions than those elements acting alone. Wikipedia will be seen as extremely primitive beginning of collective intelligence. We'll go way beyond that in 25 years. This is a normal sort of a collective intelligence system that futurists use, where we try to put together experts and software into global scanning system to figure out what's coming up, like some of the ideas I've just mentioned. Another one we've just designed, which is in the 2008 State of the Future. We did this one for the Foundation for the Future to take a look at how you create a collective intelligence for energy, because the energy innovations are going so quickly that political decision makers cannot come up with reasonable decisions because they're always behind. So we needed to create a collective intelligence so that they can do that. So one is picking out the best people you can get in the world, putting them into subject areas as well as language areas, and give them software for improving their interactive discussion so they all get smarter themselves. The other part is have an information system that's dynamic itself, that it itself can change, so that units that are put into an information system can be changed by those experts, because information is changing all of the time. So imagine not a Wikipedia of the whole thing, but imagine Wikipedias of each individual element itself within a database system. So it's not a static database system. So how do we increase intelligence anyway? One, I already told you, is responding to feedback. Just getting information causes habituation, makes you stupider and slower. Information overload. Two, consistency of love and diversity of environment, which stands to reason. Imagine a little child. If it was afraid, why would it learn? If there's no diversity going on, why would it learn? So when we put these little things over the cribs, that's good, but you should change them every day. Don't leave them there for a year. That's boring. Nutrition, that's an obvious one. Reasoning exercises, another obvious one. Believing it is possible, not so obvious, but probably the easiest way. Our friend from General Electric this morning made the comment, telling people that they can make it, celebrate success, positive reinforcement, he thought was one of the most important things. I agree with that. But I'd take it one step further. Believe you can become more intelligent. If you don't believe you can become more intelligent, you're not going to try. People say in medicine the placebo effect, that you believe you're going to get better, or if you believe you're going to get sicker, has a 10% effect on your recovery. Well, if that applies to the brain, getting 10% more intelligent is certainly worth a try. Contact with intelligent people. We all know that we mimic behavior. If you're around more intelligent people, it starts to stimulate your brain. But how can you do that? How can 99% of the world be around 1% of the world? Can't do that. Yes, you can in cyberspace. In cyberspace, you can associate with the most brilliant minds that the world has ever produced, in our lifetime or in past lifetimes. Software systems and gaming. We know that these are short-term effects, but so is oxygen. You know, you don't have oxygen within a short period of time, you're dead. So if somebody says, well, you know, these are short-term impacts on the brain. Yes, that's correct. These are all short-term impacts on the brain. But keep doing them, just like oxygen. Keep doing oxygen, you survive. Neuropharmacology. This is one of the easiest ways. The brain is more than a bunch of chemicals, but it is also a bunch of chemicals. Some chemical reactions work better than others. We know this. So let's learn how to make the brain smarter with chemicals. Many years ago, there was research in IQ drugs. Well, it became politically controversial. We're going to have to dust off that research and learn again. There's certainly better chemical relations in the bodies than others. What are they? How can we enhance them? Memes. Memes are these ideas that can move around quickly in society to change its behavior. Take, for example, the idea that intelligence is sexy. Now, a lot of women in the world believe that if they're too smart, the men are going to be intimidated and not be interested in them. So then they pretend to be a little bit less smart than they really are. Well, that's not smart, not in a knowledge economy. Agriculture economy doesn't so important. But in a knowledge economy, you want everybody as smart and knowledgeable as possible and stop pretending. So how do we change that around? Well, computer games to the rescue. Take a look at the women in the computer games today. They're sexy, good-looking, intelligent, and they can beat up a guy. That's a meme. It's a visual meme that's moving around the world. And male-female relationships, not that the games are making it happen, but the games are helping. How can we create memes in our society to make us more intelligent? Low stress, research is very clear, high-stress environments, the brain actually shrinks. The more stress you've got, the inability to respond or control your environment to an uncertain future, stress. That stress actually shrinks the brain. So get rid of the stress as much as possible. Have a stimulating environments with certain music, color, fragrances. These things can improve concentration and performance. So those are all these short-term things that people will tell you they don't matter because they don't last very long. And my answer to that is, I can't go much longer either. Okay. Longer term, well, we won't go through that. Let's see. In summary, not bad. In summary, the vision, long-term vision for education is conscious technologies where humans and technology become a global continuum. Strategy to do this is make increasing individual and national intelligence a national education goal, and create national, local, and individual collective intelligences similar to the concepts in Chapter 5 in the State of the Future, plug for the book. And last, action plan for education. Factors to consider in creating the plan are in the future of education learning in 2030 with those trade-offs that I mentioned before. And that's all in the State of the Future, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jerome. That was really interesting presentation. Indeed, I'm quite impressed by the fact that individuals would be able to gain access to the world knowledge that has been integrated for just-in-time knowledge and learning. Thank you very much. Moving on, I'm sure that the next speech is going on to be as interesting as well. Badrul H. Khan. He is currently founder and the president of McWhedon Education. Khan is past president of the International Division of the Association for Educational and Communication Technology, and also served as a consultant and advisor to education projects at the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, U.S. Department of Education and Defense, Ministry of Education in several countries, and academic organizations in the U.S. and abroad. He is going to speak about education through the new technology. In his presentation, a global framework for learning will be introduced to examine the capabilities of various attributes web technology conducive to learning. Here is Badrul Khan, please.
Thank you so much. Annyeonghaseyo, and I love kimchi. I was here in 2000. I was giving a keynote for Cyber MBA, and I'm so glad to be back. Today, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring you from the future to the real world with futurist Mr. Glenn's the futuristic view, which is I'm very much in support of. I'm going to bring you to a framework which is basically a very common sense making framework, and I call it global education framework. And we have to prepare our workforce for the future. We just can't do the business the way we're doing or we have been doing. You know, the Web 2.0 technologies, blogs, virtual reality, wikis, Wikipedia, all these new innovative technologies coming to us, they should be considered as a blessing, but you need to know how to use them. But then comes to Web 3.0 technology, semantic webs. So as you go along into the technological innovations, you'll see new and newer technologies will come to you, and it's you whether you can use it or not. So you see, now that we have internet and education technology, the learners, the students, participants in your learning, they expect, they demand increased flexibility in their learning. They want to have saying what they want to learn, how they want to learn, where they want to learn, what they want to learn. Do you all follow me what I'm saying? Because you are in the world of customer satisfaction world. And this customers-oriented world, you have to satisfy the needs of your customer. When you're at the university, that's your students. When the corporate world is your employees. In my 2007 book, which I can, this in 2007 book, as you can see the model here, I have created a flexible learning model that should help us to meaningfully design learning opportunities, learning experiences for our participants, for our customers, for our learners. So today, within the scope of very limited time that we have, I will try to make it very clear to you how this model started and how can you use it. Now, the model started, I was blessed with my first book, Web-Based Instruction in 1997, which has been a bestseller, and people all over the world asking me the question, what does it make in web-based instruction? And I could not answer them. Since then, I've been thinking about what does it take to develop flexible web-based instruction. So I started thinking about sending one of my students to Amazon forest. And he or she will have only a laptop. Now, how can I design a meaningful learning environment for that student who is in Amazon forest, away from the libraries? That made me think about many, many issues. One of the issues, well, there are many issues, so I put all these issues together to create this octagonal framework. Pedagogy. Pedagogy means learning and teaching issues. Instructional design. Content design. So pedagogy, when you're teaching, you have to have pedagogical philosophy. How you feel, what's your philosophy in teaching, that becomes an important part of a design of instruction. Technological. How about the hardware, software, infrastructure? You are trying to offer an online course. Do you know how your students, your customers are connected to the internet? What is the infrastructure? What are the hardware and software they have to think about? What are you trying to do? You put the learner, your customer at the center of the model and ask these questions. Interface design is a physical layout and the navigation of your online environment. I'm originally from Bangladesh, where thumbs up means I challenge you. But in the United States and the other Western world, it says, way to go, you did a good job. So for example, I have developed an online environment and I'm asking a questions. If my student is in Bangladesh, he got the answer right, then the computer gives a thumbs up. That will make him upset because it means I challenge you. But if he was in the US and it was a thumbs up, way to go, you did good. You see? So interface design, kind of sign and symbol that you use as you're going global, you need to pay attention to this. For example, red color used as a danger color in Western culture. But the red is a very vibrating, animated, revolutionary color for China. So what you need to think about in your interface design, design of the screen, design of the learning environment, have to be very, very sensitive about, by the way, can you all follow me what I'm saying? I'm speaking too fast for you? Okay. So you need to be very sensitive about design of the interface, how you interface between human and the computer system, all the futuristic models of technology that Mr. Glenn mentioned. Next category, evaluation. if you are teaching face-to-face classes, you seem to only evaluate the instructor, the professor. But in online learning, in e-learning, in flexible learning, somebody becomes a subject matter expert. Someone else in instructional design designed the course. You can hire someone to teach the course. There are technical support involved, there are registration support involved, there are administrative support services involved. So you need to evaluate the comprehensive, all the stakeholders involved in the designing and offering these courses. I hope you are aware of that happens in online education. Management. You see, in the regular classroom, I would go and start lecturing. But in online environment, the course is designed with wikis, blogs, Second Life, which is virtual reality. You have so many different kind of Web 2 technologies. Who is going to maintain, update, so that the students are getting the most up-to-date information? So management of these Web 2 technologies, e-learning materials play a major role for whoever developing the online learning. Resource support. If you are offering a course online, if I offer a course online from the US, and anybody is taking from any parts of the world, from South Africa to Zimbabwe to Thailand to Canada, they will expect that we provide 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week, online technical support services for the students. Understand, these participants, they are taking your courses and they've almost forgotten that they are not taking a face-to-face classes with you. So they are dispersed, distributed all over the world. So they will demand just-in-time support. So you better be careful when you're designing online education. Ethical issues is a very major issue. Ethical consideration in e-learning. There are so many issues, ethical issues involved: plagiarism, learner diversity, geographical diversity, and I'll go into that more detail. So ethical issues is so important in online learning because the students are not with you. They are dispersed all over the world. They are global. They are cross-cultural. So what you need to do, you need to pay attention to who are your customers. Institutional. If you offer an online course, people on the other end who is taking the course will say, well, the course that I'm taking with this online program, is it as good as if I have taken the course face-to-face? So you have to develop your online learning experiences better than even your face-to-face classes. So there will be a quiz after my presentation. Can you all remember this is 8 dimension? It's a start from, by the way, my book, this one is in Korean languages, came in 2000. So it has, if you need the reference, I can provide you that. But remember that when you're designing futuristic, flexible e-learning, you put the learner at the center and keep asking the questions along these 8 dimensions so that, and you ask those questions for your instructor, whether the instructor will be happy, or you ask this question for technical support. So more issues that you can think about and you can address them, better off you are. So this presentation will be available, it's in here, also in my website, so you can get to this. There are dimensions, there are sub-dimensions within the 8 dimensions. So within the scope of today's conversation, I'm going to give you some specific example for few dimensions. Pedagogical questions, content. Whatever you're trying to teach online, is it appropriate for the online teaching? See, if a medical professor, a surgeon teaching how to do surgery, I think he or she can perform a surgery and we can use the video devices to show the rest of the world how it's performing the surgery for the demonstration purposes only. But if you are a medical student, you want to have an hands-on experience. You have to test the blood, talk to the patients, then you do surgery. So can you use online for that? No. So for the demonstration purposes only, you can show how a procedurally surgery can perform. So one thing you have to think about, e-learning cannot be completely done on all different kinds of subjects. You need to think about what part of the content that you're teaching can be, delivered by an online, and what part of the content that you're teaching needs hands-on human interaction. So it becomes blended e-learning. This is important for you to remember. For example, there are two types of content. Some contents are stable, never changes. Some contents are dynamic. I have a dream speech by Martin Luther King is a stable content. It's never going to change. So would you put that online? I don't think so, because it's going to bottleneck the bandwidth. So you rather put on a CD or other methods, because it's never going to change. Dynamic content, so historical events are a stable content, never changes. You can put on a CD or other format. But dynamic content, which are like a policy, U.S. policy on foreign, by the way, our new President Obama, there are so many changes, hopefully it will happen. So the policy level, there are so many changes. If someone teaching a course in IR, international relations, the policy will change. So that's a dynamic content, and online is good for it. If you change it, it changes all over the places. So you also save money by doing the content analysis of what content is dynamic, what content is stable. So stable content, you can use an alternative method like a book, printed material, CD-ROM, things like that. Now the design of your learning. In many places, I know, I was growing up in Bangladesh, where when professor comes to the podium, students stand up as an honor. So this is also when the professor talks, professor is more like a didactic. Like a professor is the one, is the sage on the stage, knows everything, and the students listen. That is one model. It's called didactic. Another model is the facilitative. Professor comes, develops nice resources, and stay on the side and facilitated learning. So if you are designing online education, your pedagogical philosophy will be important. So many cases, yeah, sometimes you could be didactic. You know it, students should learn. But sometimes you can be facilitative. You say, I'm going to stay on the side, the student will do the collaborative learning, cooperative learning, and things like that. So you can do the combination of these four, all this. By the way, these are the regular, very common sense making ideas that one has to think about. Interface design. This is very important since we are going very global. In the United States, President Clinton made it as a law. It's called 508 compliance, American Disability Act. For example, this is very simple and easily can be done easily, and is very humanistic approach. Suppose you have my website and you have my picture. So in the website, for the blind person, the website can use, blind person can use a screen reader software. So what it will do, it come to my picture, you say, a screen reader will say graphic. But in your design of the website, you can put an alternative text, say that this is the picture of Badrul Khan standing in front of a house, talking to someone. So the blind person through the screen reader software will hear that. You see? So that 508 compliance in the US, which is accessibility, is so important. I hope that it has to be accepted globally. Every parts of the world, I go every countries in the world when I'm invited, and I talk about this thing. And I think many countries are adopting this idea of Disability Act. We have to be good human. That's what we will become as global educations. So I don't know when in Korea whether there is a compliance as 508, but I think I encourage for government to think about disability compliances for students and participants with disabilities. Ethical issues. As I said, cultural diversity. Make sure, one time, one of the participants of my speech asked me, you're talking about so many cultural misunderstanding, so many icons and symbols we use. How do we know what to use? I told them, that was in Virginia. I said, if you are trying to offer a course only to students in Virginia, maybe you're safe because you know your learner and you're creating graphics, signs, and symbols. But if you venture into global market, then you have to be careful. Again, I repeat this. If you are venturing with your flexible learning to the global market, you must be thinking about, must be doing some demographic and learner study to see what symbols and icons and interface designs are not acceptable to those people. Geographical diversity. Even in the United States alone has 6 time zones. Suppose I have scheduled a chat discussion, like a synchronous live discussion, chat room, and I'm in DC at 6 in the morning, or suppose I'm at 8 in the morning in Washington, DC, and I have a student in Hawaii, that will be about 4 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning. I do not think my student will be so excited to give up his or her sleep and wake up so early in the morning, 4 in the morning, to chat with me. So because of the geographical diversity, think about other countries in the world. Is day and night difference between the US and Korea. So when you're designing global flexible learning education, please make sure there are geographical diversity. Your students, your customers, your employees in the corporate world could be in different parts of the world. So what's the solution? Don't do chat room. Don't do live synchronous discussions. Rather do asynchronous. You do some discussion, they can come and join it anytime they want. What I have shared with you is basically what I hear from people that I go different parts of the world. They raise these concerns. One other thing I must add to this, there is international interoperability standards, meaning that if you create a movie and that movie has a good meta tag, good extension, so that people in other countries and other learning management system can use it. So in the United States, Department of Defense has established something called a SCORM. Anybody knows SCORM here? SCORM is shareable course reference model, meaning that they give the standard. And IEEE, International Electrical and Engineering Consortium, also have the standard. So you have to be concerned about the international interoperability standards, so that whatever materials, learning materials you create, it could be reused in other learning management systems, like a Blackboard or whatever software you use. So that also saves money. So make sure that whatever e-learning materials or flexible learning materials you are creating, make sure they can be reused in a different learning management system. See, software changes, but the materials that you created, if you follow the international standard, it will be available and it will work very well in other software. So today, within the scope of today, I just brought you some issues in the form of questions. And I think that you should ask as many questions as possible, because you're going global. Like Mr. Glenn mentioned, that what will happen in 25 years from now? We don't know, but we know one thing, that we will have learner, we know that we will have learning materials, but we have to cater to their needs, whatever the new technology comes. It's a very simple thing. Jack Welch today was talking about that interpersonal, human relations, human part of it. You need to be very concerned about that. So what I have done, what I practice, I preach, I was a professor at the University of Texas and also the George Washington University. I am somehow not in favor of brick and mortar university. Many of my students, doctoral or graduate students, come to me to take classes to learn about specific practical skills. So to promote what I'm thinking, I established Macquarie Education, where I'm providing month-long short courses right now in e-learning, $99. So people are teaching the courses, they are the professor teaching in other places. Because with the university system, I honestly make a futuristic, my time is over, but let me make one projection. Futuristic university, I don't think is going to be like university like we have. It will be needs-based. Individual customer will come to the institution to get their materials. So having said that, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I can answer at the end. Thank you.
네, 이 회의가 영어로 진행되는데.
Understand that the meeting is proceeding in English, but I've heard from the organizer that I may speak in Korean. So I prepared my presentation in Korean. I'm not comfortable speaking English either. So it's not easy for me to switch into English right now, so allow me for speaking in Korean.
English audience that I prepared my paper in my native language, Korean. Interpret might help you. Please wear the earphone. Yes. 우리나라의 대학은
Recently, the university in Korea has been forced various types of change from many aspects. From a general perspective, from mid-1990s, educational reform has been taking place according to the government initiative, and now universities are required to engage in competition and transformation. Universities have many obligations such as an academic superiority, social responsibility, and operational efficiency. And now more universities are subject to a relative evaluation. In many places throughout the world, the modern industrial society's tradition is giving way to the emergence of a knowledge-based society. So we are seeing a redefinition of knowledge and information. At the same time, we are seeing the major trend of globalization in many parts of the world. This ethos is putting nations to compete with one another, and countries are putting the universities at the front line of such competition. This type of trend is witnessed in numerous countries throughout the world. Knowledge, information, production, expansion, and processing could be done in a most systematic way in universities. So naturally, tertiary education or universities can no longer adhere to its traditional framework to meet the requirements of the new era. So it is faced with the challenge to re-transform themselves for the change. This change is not so much partial or gradual as a full-phased and radical change. So that is why it is sometimes cited as a paradigm shift. Professor Lee Hyun-chung, who's currently president of Sangmyeong University, has categorized the major elements of the paradigm shift in the universities. Is the PowerPoint material prepared?
누가 컨트롤하지 않니? 응?
Can somebody switch the PowerPoint slide for me, please? Thank you. As you can see on the slide, according to the categorization of Professor Lee Hyun-chung, there are these type of categories, which was originally written in English. We're seeing a trend from an ivory concept to learning industry concept, from campus-based to off-campus oriented, from teaching-oriented to learning-oriented, from national standards to global standards, from formal higher education to continuing higher education, from educational administration concept to strategic management concept, from curriculum-based to a learning format-oriented, from university concept to televersity and jobversity and megaversity concepts. These are the 8 new elements that is witnessed in the paradigm shift for university. It is an interesting argument which backs the actual reality of paradigm shift. The upper elements are not so much the result of a radical change, but result from the gradual transformation from the Western medieval universities and its transformation into a modern type of university. But in Korea, it could be cited as a paradigm shift because the change is very radical and short-phased. For example, universities in Korea, are they capable of going through this transformation successfully? We have to think about this issue. Originally, the Korean society has not went through the typical process starting from the pre-modern to modern to the post-modern ages. It is not a society that has grown on a phase-by-phase basis. Therefore, the society entails both pre-modern inertia, modern elements, as well as the post-modern symptoms. It is a complicated stage of life. So from one sense, there is a rapid collapse of tradition and custom, but in the profound consciousness of the people and in the daily habits and lifestyles, many Koreans still adhere to the traditional lifestyle. And even before the modern structure is stabilized, Koreans were required to adapt to the postmodern, the ultra-modern thinking and attitude. So we can see a rapid change both in smaller and in larger stages. Compared with 10 years ago, we see many changes in the university. The qualifications of the faculty, the physical facility, the system, and the R&D and learning and atmosphere have all changed. However, this type of change up to now have still remained within the framework of a traditional university. It was still within the structure of a medieval or modern type of university. It was not a real change to become a future-oriented university. So throughout the evolution of university, we can divide the phases into 3 parts. The first is the medieval Western university before the Industrial Revolution, which is the ivory towers for professionalism, for lawyers, doctors, or clergies. The medieval universities were where these professionals were produced. And then this has laid the foundation for the basic curriculum structure, for liberal arts and special courses, and also for the student and professor relationship. The university and society had a high wall in between them, and in addition to that, the authoritarian order has been guaranteed by the regime of the society itself. And the next phase is the so-called elitism for industrial societies. Universities were open to a limited number of elites. After Industrial Revolution, universities also was open to technology in a partial manner, but at the same time, the freedom of study has emerged as a new ideology of university in early 19th century. Humboldt or Fichte of Germany have been the founding people of the Berlin University, and we see the changes after the foundation. And now, not only the teaching function, but the research function has been added to university, and universities are not limited to their in-campus activity, but also to off-campus activity activities to contribute to the society through its teaching and research. And the third phase is the future university, which could also include the universities of today. We see an open society type of a learning center. University is no longer limited to a small number of fixed people. It is no longer an ivory tower. It itself is a popular or mass industry. So it's not only a place where the adolescents study in their campuses. It's an open space that provides access to students of all age. And the knowledge and information is not provided in an authoritarian order. Each learner can select their curricula, and this in turn creates a free flow of knowledge and information. And now the distinction between formal and non-formal education is becoming blurred. Ideology, knowledge, information, technology, selective criteria, and the efficiency and superiority of management are all increasingly becoming globalized. So now, within a country, the university is open to the society with multiple programs, and also is open to the global community with its free flow of knowledge, information, and value. But when you look at the university in Korea, they are faced with the challenge to meet the trend for the future-oriented universities. But this transformation will, of course, accompany a certain level of conflict. And there are a couple of conflicting challenges that universities should overcome. And we could summarize them into the following. The first is the tenacity to elitism. The translation in the article and the phrasing on the screen could be different. So, because the screen translation was done by myself. The first conflict or challenge is the obsession toward elitism. Elitism is no longer a pursuit of universities. So, as such, the university will face a deep impact regarding its identity. To cite Aristotle, elitism defines the value of people with the most superior reasoning. As a matter of fact, the more prestigious and powerful universities in Korea seem to be more obsessive towards elitism, and the less powerful universities seem to be more, at least generous and open towards the less authoritarian studies. And for example, the preference of academicism over professionalism is all in line with the elitism. And many of these powerful universities have a tendency to ignore and play down the disciplines which they regard as less authoritative. And the openness of the university is also exemplified in other activities. There are many types of pluralistic activities taking place in the roles of universities. If the rigid perception of a university is remains unchanged, then it will naturally result in a conflict with the future-oriented university. And the second conflict is a bias to conception of knowledge in modernism. And the modernist knowledge was not so much produced by the general public, but by a small number of geniuses. Previously, the Korean universities regarded those elite type or the pre-modern or the modern type knowledge as the most important knowledge. But this perception is also not suitable to meet with the demands of a future-oriented university. We should focus on the Enlightenment spirit and reasoning, to cite Descartes and Kant. And the spirit of modernism appeals to human reason, to understand human and nature, and to set moral rules and institutional principles. Reason should be defined as the internal capability to distinguish between truth and false, justice and injustice. The reason has the principal capability to explain the surrounding world. It also has the transcendental basis to give judgments to experience. But the so-called postmodernism and their ideologists oppose the modernist belief or the Descartes belief. The postmodernists believe that human reason does not perceive truth or discover value. Postmodernism regards that reason is limited to a small number of people, and according to the new value, everybody has the capability to take part in creating knowledge. And the school is not a place limited to a small number of elites. It is a place to take part in the general and public knowledge economy and open to the general public. So the knowledge and education is not provided in a one-way manner, but the evaluation, selection, organization, utilization, creation, and reproduction of knowledge and information are the priorities in the new postmodernist value of knowledge. And the third is the resistance against the role of continuous or lifelong education providers for universities. We are seeing rapid changes in the society. We are seeing a rapid change of jobs and careers. And labor migration is another major factor in the world. So that is why more universities are faced with the pressure to open to multiple ranges of students. So this university is no longer a place open to a small number of age groups. It is now pursuing a more open platform because that is a requirement of the society. Any learner can gain access to the universities for the reschooling that they need. Many Western societies have expanded their formal and non-formal curriculum to the general learners. But if we adhere to the ivory tower type perception, it will inevitably cause conflict. And there is a concern that this type of popularization of university could undermine the principle and spirit of university. And it could lead to commercialism of the university. But the demand for this but the mandate to prevent this is to ensure a quality management in a reasonable manner of the university. And the fourth conflict is the uneasiness to an open control system. The subjects of education should not be limited to a certain group. And this is a reality. We are seeing a greater level of mobility and change regarding the numbers of the university. We are seeing a greater flexibility as well. And this type of openness, however, does not mean that all types of managerial responsibilities will be lifted. It is rather a breakaway from the organizational structure, so it would actually deepen the burden and responsibility of the managers. So that is why the open system is an issue for concern for the managers of the university. However, it's important to note that control is a negative element for a democratic growth. In the selection and training of the students, universities should have autonomy. And this is the only way to ensure an open structure and to make the democratic structure of the university more mature. So that is why the universities request them to have a greater autonomy and greater freedom for its management from the central government. If universities have greater autonomy, it will contribute to the democratization and enhancement of life quality in the Korean society. But at the same time, it's also important to note that there should be follow-up measures to be made to ensure continuous autonomy. Once the universities have autonomy, it's important that that autonomic operation is ensured in all levels of university management. And the fifth conflict is the fear to accept global standards. With global standards, universities will be required to enhance their level of R&D. Also, they will be required for future restructurings to meet global standards, and this is a cause of concern. However, this is an undeniable fact to recognize in a globalized society. So whether whether the universities want this or not, this is an undeniable trend. So it is crucial for universities to meet with the global standards. These five conflicts are challenges that universities should overcome in the long run. Otherwise, Korean universities will not be a part of the future-oriented universities. So, the solution might be subject to criticism that it will lower the quality of traditional universities. However, it is important to note that this is the way to improve the universities to meet with the future-oriented criteria.
Right. So no, because we have to move along. I won't move around again. So I think the question I want to ask all of the speakers has to do with, you've outlined different types of future types of learning and education, but future role of the university. But what type of policy framework do you anticipate is needed? First question. And secondly, is that framework national? International? What? How is that to be organized? That would be my first question. My second question has to do with the role of education. Much of what we have heard has been fascinating, but has basically been about learning knowledge or learning to process knowledge. Education is often thought, and I certainly think, has other important roles also, inculcating values, things of this type. Is this no longer to be a feature of education at the higher level? Is this now just to be left to the primary and secondary level? Or how do you see this broader role of education in inculcating values, promoting social cohesion, and so on? Thank you.
Well, I think that one policy change that would be very significant, beginning initially with countries and the sub-units of countries, would be the acceptance of mastery learning. And what I mean by that is that you get certified by mastering a certain amount of skills and learning by some sort of standard test. And you might be very far advanced in mathematics and very far behind in, say, learning Chinese. So the idea of grade levels, all people at the same time, lockstep, moving from one grade to another, would have to be a policy decision. Right now, the world is organized in levels, not organized in terms of capacity. So that would be one policy change I would see locally. but I would see that becoming international, because imagine you have a choice. Would you like to be certified in advanced algebra in a country, or would you like to be certified in advanced algebra in the world? So eventually I think world systems will surpass them, but I would suspect that they would begin locally to begin with.
Philip, can you hear me? Well, I'm not an expert in policy, but my answer to this great question that I'm thinking more global. Are we preparing our workforce for the local or the global market? You could be in Seoul, Korea. You might be preparing your professionals for the global market. So the policy level, the local policy has to follow some kind of international policy, international education standard. I mentioned for e-learning there are IEEE, International Electrical Engineers, they have some kind of standards. So I believe as we are starting to dialoguing with international consortium of universities, education ministries, we have to come up with some international education policies. And each of this country, to be in the consortium of international standard, they have to participate. Second thing, role of education questions, let me answer that when I'm saving time. I don't believe the university is going to be the same, and what their deliverables, their graduates will have a different kind of skills, because the world will be requiring, demanding different kind of skills. I don't know what that will look like, but I know the present education system in my mind is four-wall, closed-bounded. It needs to be open, and it may not exist. Thank you.
네, 역시 또 우리말로.
Well, I will also answer in Korean. Well, thus far, traditional universities and the so-called new universities have been discussed, and the major difference is that the traditional university educates people of the same age bracket for the same amount of period according to a set curriculum. And when that process is completed, that is the end of university education. That was the role by traditional universities. However, the universities of the future, they will not only have to open up their universities in terms of the contents of education. We will not just deliver information that is created by the geniuses, but we will be able to have an open school where reschooling is possible. That is the type of university of the future. That is something that we can predict, and I believe that many universities in Korea are setting foot towards that direction. I think in the future, the university society within the education system will play a large role in providing a variety of perspectives and delivering values that have been created from a wide variety of perspectives. Universities will play the role of analyzing, refining, and accumulating information and knowledge and value from different perspectives. And at the very least, with the enhanced level of schooling across societies, I think through education, people will be able to think in a more reasonable way, and maybe that will somehow contribute to the solution of the very complex issues that exist in our societies. And so universities will also play the role of providing the principles of problem solving in societies. And I believe that in the process of education, universities must take this into note. In the future, the so-called the conflicting values, the conflicting perspectives, and the conflicting factors should not be neglected, or it should not be just
viewed as a problem because conflicts will exist in democratic societies. We need to learn how to deal with these conflicts.
It's just time to close our session, but I would like to just one question from four. No questions? Thank you very much. I'm quite sure that all presentations are interesting and very informative. Thank you very much again, and give all speakers a big applause.